Running Sentences presents Pirates, Politics, and Potentially Treasure, Book 1, Part 7. A Welcoming Party. With the princess and prince arriving at the capital, and Cordite taking up his post, life seems good, or is it? It's hard to tell at this point. Story is written and narrated by Michael Hunray. This story is a work of fiction. Any names, characters, businesses, events, and situations presented within this story are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real people, real situations, events, characters, businesses, and/or fictional ones is purely coincidental. Copyright 2023, Michael Hunray. All rights reserved. Their little shuttle pulled up to the Grogian embassy, a stout building that rose up only a couple of stories. It was grey and bleak-looking, and gave signs that all who entered should have no hope. Literally, signs posted at the exterior of the place said this. Princess Tulis got out first, taking in the sight as her brother Nero followed her out to the vehicle, and then the two were immediately accosted by two guards, who grabbed at their arms to stop them from going any further. "Who are you two? And why are you being dropped off in proper entrance of the embassy? No one comes in the front." Nero leveled a look at the two, one of which was a female Grogian soldier, and the other one he couldn't exactly tell what they were, but he didn't care. The look, though, achieved nothing, as the glares and angry voices continued. "This is government property. No galactic people allowed without permission." "We are citizens of the Grogian Empire. Why else would we be here, you two?" "Yes, my brother and I are royalty. It is a poor idea to keep us from seeing the ambassador or entering the building. If you would be so kind to let us in." There was a disbelieving look that shared between the two, but neither let go of the arms that they'd grabbed. Instead, the female one turned and shouted back to the guard station that was a few feet behind them and behind a wall. "Ah, boss, do we have any records of this?" A head popped out from behind the wall, but only the eyes were visible thanks to a big helmet. "What's this?" "These two are claiming the right of passage thanks to being royalty and Grogian. Can you believe it?" The figure now fully emerged and lifted up the visor so that they could see them as they approached. "Right, so who are these two?" "I am Prince Nero." "And I am Princess Tulis." "And your papers, then?" They produced two cards, which they held out in front of them, but away from themselves. They did not want to get too close to this rabble, and the guard, who they guessed they were calling boss, gently took them and looked them over before handing them back. "Give me a second, I need to check the computer system. What's your reason for visiting here, by the way?" "We were sent away to work by the president. This is the assignment they gave us, to help out. It comes directly from the president, by the way, so there's no way around it." This boss looked a bit sheepish and skeptical as they retreated away back to the wall. It took only a minute before he was waving them through, and with heads held high the two passed by the two guards, who shrugged to one another and stood aside. They then went back to being ready for anything wrong to come their way. The last few days had been a bit much for even Cordite as he lay on his bed. Sleep had come and gone with little to do other than occasionally work out, which he was never much for. 2 days had gone by since the last meeting with the president of the galactic world, and since then, zip, which was fine and dandy. Just meant that he had nothing to do, really. And the sooner this nonsense was over, the better, though. Where he would go from here, he couldn't say. Lying around wasn't doing him any good, and so he sat up, moving off the bed towards his door, yanking it open, and was surprised to see Doc there, along with Lion, both about ready to knock on the door. "What brings you two to my door?" "An idea and a call that came through while we were hanging around the front desk. We promised to deliver the news once they realized who we were. Well, Doc wanted to deliver the news. I want little to do with it." Cordite looked over to Doc Mott for a better explanation, since Lion was talking his way around and about the subject. "The ambassadorship is apparently being approved." A frown came to Cordite, who tried to turn it into a smile, but the whole thing felt rather forced. He let that drop so he could think instead of wasting energy. What to do now? Of course, take the job. It would be the first and only move, really. After that, well, there was no way he would ever get any pirate to agree to any move he ever made. This is definitely confirmed. The call sounded official that they should expect a group of emissaries to come to this hotel for a grand introductory event. There is only one group here, and that's us, so... They did ask for you as well to be down in the lobby in 1 hour, which I think now is actually 45 minutes from now. You spent 15 minutes getting to my room, or discussing what this was about before getting to my room. They both sort of shrugged and nodded their heads yes, leaving Cordite with a new frown. He glanced down at his clothes and then back at his suitcases. What little he had. There wasn't much call for fancy stuff as a salvage pirate, but this was probably going to be a fancy event with nice stuff. He had nothing like that and didn't think anything could be found in a short time. The plush interior of Ambassador Cricket's office could be felt through the plushness of the rug. Little else was paid attention to in this office, with drab things having been put up and having a semblance of an office. Nero and Tulis had stepped in and taken a moment to look about the place. The ambassador sat cross-legged in the center of the room on a chair and observed them carefully. The two royals have finally shown up. How nice. I have an assignment for you, which you will have to take. You're okay with us? I mean, this seems rather sudden, and I don't think we actually expected to be accepted. Oh, I don't care much. There's no work to do here, and it's mostly all about going to parties and not making yourself known for being drunk. But, also don't commit any crimes, and, as for your history and your parents dismissing you from the family, well, welcome to the order of people who have lost their favor. Are you part of the royalty? Formerly, sort of. Side family of the whole mess. We've never been fully recognized, and we're more or less used for cushy jobs to keep things quiet, of course. Now, your new jobs that you have to accept. Yes, what are they exactly, and what is the rush? We just got here, and you already have a job for us without really knowing much about us? Listen. Things are about appearances here. We need you to make an appearance for appearance's sake, since the Grogian Empire is against pirates, and the Galactic Empire has sort of accepted them. Why? What's this about pirates, if I may ask? To show the Galactic government that we weren't fully standing in their way. The pirates of and the galaxy need to get along to make whatever it is they're going to do work. The president, Utility, yes, his name is Utility. He's got some plan of some sort, and he's trying to work with pirates. So, you two go to this meeting, this ambassadorship's approval meeting, I guess it is. Party, maybe? Yes, it's a party. I remember that now. You two go to that and find out what is going on there. Simple. Go and listen and make yourself known. And you're just simply trusting us. Of course not. This will be a look to see how you do and if you're worth keeping around. Now, this is taking place within the next few minutes, so if you do want this job and you don't want to be put in a dark cell at the bottom of this embassy, then I suggest you hurry over to this new hotel place that this is going on at. My secretary will fill you in on where it is. They will then shoot away with a hand motion. The secretary had kindly shown them to the garage attached to the embassy and set them up with a vehicle. The two were following this secretary toady across the slick pavement to the car that they were being allowed to use. For the most part, they could not help but stare at this secretary, who looked like a toad and kept moving like one as well as it hopped along. Do you have any advice about how to deal with any of this? This is your first foray into politics? No, me and my sister have done such work back home, but not really in a public sphere out here. Oh, well, in that case it's simple. Smile, wave at the cameras, and answer questions in a vague way. You probably won't be asked much or talked to by anyone, if you'll follow that advice anyway. They had more questions, and Tulis looked on the verge of asking it, but they had arrived at the carriage car that would take them. Toady opened the door to the back seats and motioned for them to get in. "Hurry along now, no time to waste, since the event is off to a start at any moment." Nero let his sister go in first, but paused before entering. "Are we walking into a bad situation?" "Oh, political situations are bad. Keep your head up, and only talk in a vague manner, deflecting questions back to the embassy, or that you need time to research. Just say those things and you should be fine." To this, Nero could only frown as he entered the car, and the door was slammed shut behind him. When the time had come, Cordite went down to the grand ballroom of the hotel. There, a slightly filled room was still being prepared and being made ready, but there was already quite a few guests milling about the place. A glance about made this feel like it was both an important ceremony and like one that was being rushed to just get it done with. Cordite really didn't want to be front and center of attention of all this matter, but right now there was little choice in this and what he'd gotten himself into, despite being that he didn't want to get himself into this at all. President Utility was already there, and was milling about, but hadn't noticed him yet, so he tried to stick to the walls and out of sight, just to buy himself some time. Despite trying to not really look too much around, he found himself going cold as he spotted the familiar-looking faces from the Groggian Empire. "Lion? Sir, those two over there?" He pointed towards them while trying to remain unseen. The two didn't seem to have noticed them yet, but they were looking about as they held drinks in their hand and looked ready. "Well, we rescued them from the escape ship, right?" "Yeah, I think you did that. You also said they had a price on their heads, and yet here they are, standing with no problems." Unconsciously, Cordite looked about the room for any potential threats. Not being familiar with the life of politics, though, the more he looked, the more he felt everything was sort of threatening towards him. "Do you want me to do something about them?" "No, best not to. Keep out of sight and pretend you don't know them. Pass the word to the rest of the crew that are here." Lion slipped off, as President Utility had spotted and strolled towards him with a cheap grin, even cheaper-looking glass in his hand. "The person who is going to help us save the galaxy. How are you?" "Uncomfortable." "Yes, that is the way things are these days. I did as your associate said, by the way, the guards and the warden on the prison ship. It was time, and I'm one to take advice every now and then. Change needs to occur." "Is that your way of saying you'll be relying on me to steer you away from pirate problems?" "Of course. Now, you should meet some of the others here, please." Without touching him, Utility used his arm to herd Cordite away from his other associate and towards a nearby group of dressed-up aliens. Cordite had gone with simple clothes, and these, from what he could see, of the various sizes and shapes and varying colors, all sort of stood out in their regalness and how well they were dressed. This, by the way, is a group from the Oxen planet. Cows? Yes, wait, what you humans would call cows. I think they have different names for themselves, but I never can remember it, since it is so long and so complicated. It begins with moo and then goes on from there, I think. Cordite merely nodded along, since there was nothing to say to that or do aside from approach this group. This was done, and they stood waiting for the conversation to die a bit before the president could interrupt them. The largest of the group then turned to them when the moment was right. "Mr. Utility, what can I do for you?" "My friend Oxy, yes, that is Oxy, I remember correctly this time. This is our new ambassador, Cordite Mercury, pirate extraordinaire, who will be taking a seat as, an ambassador. That's why we're here." "This is the fabled person." Cordite felt like he should offer his hand to shake, though when he did, it was promptly ignored, and his hand was left stuck in the air, waiting. "Yes, this is the one who's caused a bit of a ruckus as politicians try to figure out how to shoot the whole thing down. Don't think I didn't notice your efforts, by the way." "No, pirates have their uses, and we used many of them to stop some rebellions on other planets from taking over ours." "I see, isn't that great, Cordite?" Yes, I suppose it is, President. Who did you help to hire out, by the way, Mr. Oxy? I think they called themselves the Broadside Bullies or something like that. It wasn't me who bought their services, but that was done on planet side. I was here, of course, as the ambassador. With a handshake firmly rejected, as Oxy never reached out for it with his hooved paws, Cordite put his hand down to think. He hadn't heard of that group. It could be someone to potentially reach out to in the future to find out anything about them in the first place, or if they were even still together. Is protection all they ever did for you? The ambassador offered a big, deep shrug and turned back to his group, ending the conversation completely. There's a new group over there who I haven't met yet. 2 new people from the Groggian Empire. Whispers are that they've some interactions with their government. Let's go meet them. Despite not wanting to, Cordite went towards the 2 lost-looking souls whose names he just barely remembered were Nero and Tullus. With a sigh, he slowed down a bit so he could talk to the president. Yes, I have actually met these 2 very recently, and I helped save them, actually. Is that what you're talking about, or is it something else that you're talking about? Not my running away from their government. Oh, you saved them? Oh, well, the Groggians say pirates are the worst and will crow about them every time, or something like that happens, or whenever something happens. Your type always gets the blame for something by them, even if pirates were nowhere involved. Take the Gemstone Wars, that had a few pirates, but was mostly running goods for the galactic government. Transports, really, to help the side out. Still, those Groggians bitched to the ends of space how you caused so much wrong, and were wrong to help out, and so on and so forth. I see. He was slightly relieved that the president apparently did not know about him being chased away by the Groggian Empire, but he was worried, since generally those kind of things were known. And anyway, none of this made him happy, as he braced himself as the 2 Groggians realized who he was as they approached. Panic shot through their faces as they tried to grin and say something. Hello, you 2. I see that you're the new ones hired by the Groggians as representatives. How are you? Their mouths opened and shut a few times as there was a search for words. Cordite winced and stepped forward. If I remember correctly, sir, this is Princess Tullus and Prince Nero of the royal family of Grog. The royal family doing dirty work. Oh, you must have done something terribly wrong. How unfortunate for you. This is Cordite Mercury, the pirate, who you will need to liaise with if you have any complaints about piracy from now on. Don't come to me. That's his job. And, I heard rumors. The panicked look had not left their faces, but was replaced by a mostly curious expression. They both looked to Cordite, who gave a small smile, but that was the extent of what he was going to do for them. Shall we move on to the others, then, President? Right, sure. Right this way, Mr. Pirate. They moved off, visiting a few others, most of whom ignored him completely. He, however, realized that he was under the constant watch of the likes of Tullus. He decided to wave to her, and then head off this conversation while waiting for this official announcement of him being ambassador. Within a few feet, he was next to her. What seems to be the problem you have with me? Is it that I'm a pirate, or that my crew saved you from the escape pod that was running out of power? Both? Something else? What is wrong, miss? I have questions for you. Well, now is your chance to ask them before things really get going and complicated and I'm never able to talk to anybody ever again, I suppose. Why did you turn us over to the Groggian Navy ship? He raised his eyebrow at this, since he hadn't expected that question. No, the more he thought about it, the less sure he knew what he was expecting in the first place. It was a potential chance to get away from your navy, since it was so set on blowing things up. I was just trying to save my crew, really. Can you tell me why you had or still have a price on your head? I do not have a price on my head. This wasn't a surprise to him. He figured she might or might not have known about that. To him, this told her that she might be another stuck-up royal who didn't pay attention to anyone other than herself. And the end result, a great person that wound up being stuck having a conversation with, he feared. He pulled his holodeck computer screen out of his pocket and flicked it until it was on the bounties section. A bit of scrolling found her and her brother, which he then showed to Tulis. Someone like you and your brother is on this page, which means someone is likely coming for you too. But it isn't us. She looked at the screen with a shake of her head. It might not be you, but contractors don't care about that until the job is done and things are proven. It says it's okay if you're dead and not alive, so they'll kill and worry about things later. A worried expression was now on Tulis's face as she looked around for her brother. They won't come from us here, right? It's the galactic capital. Would they? He opened up the listing price to check to see if the bounty had gone up or down or what it was at that moment. I say they want someone to come after you since it has gone up from the last few days. When he looked up, though, he saw that she was gone and his words might have not been heard. With a shrug, he turned to head back to his companions when he heard the president's voice again. Right, let's make this quick. There's plenty of things a lot of us would rather be doing. Mr. Cordite, if you could come up front and center to the room, please. Swiveling about on his heels, Cordite, with great reluctance, made his way as requested. This, my great collection of aliens, is Cordite Mercury, the pirate. Some of you have met him and some of you have not, but I'm sure that will all be fixed as you all talk to him and, rely on him for pirate matters. He is hereby appointed as an ambassador to the galactic government for his group. If any of you have any problems with pirates, go to him first, okay? And with that, the little party broke up, leaving Cordite standing up on this little stage, having not actually had to say anything, which was good, but all of the aliens, instead of waiting around for the rest of the party, just made for the exit. Ophelia laid out a map on the table next to the space map on the bridge of her ship. She had acquired it from Court, who had given it to her with some trepidation. Her ship's navigator was moving about the computer map of the ship trying to figure out where things might line up. There was unfortunately few marks that would give a good indication of where this map was leading to. Why are we doing this? It's a treasure map. I would have figured that you could put that together, since what else would have a bright spot marked on it, signifying something? The navigator opened their mouth to say more, but smartly shut it as they worked away. Ophelia was pleased by this, since more questions would not be welcomed unless they would lead to finding this place. To her, it looked familiar on the map. She couldn't quite place what it was, making her think this. Lark, navigator, does this place remind you of some place we've been, seen, been around, seen on a map, whatever else? Not to me, no. Where do you think it might be? Ophelia bit her lip. If she was wrong, it would look bad. If she was right, a superb genius who might never be questioned again. Neither was great as a pirate captain, his questions always needed to be flowing. It reminds me of the area around the Grogian Empire that's sort of off limits, I've heard. I've never been there, and I can't be sure if that's right or wrong, though. In a flash, the navigator had a map of the area up on the computer. They were scrolling through that space, looking for anything that looked like the worn, tired beige map that Ophelia had brought aboard. Not seeing something that looks close to it. Our maps are not up to date on this area, though. Perhaps we might make a request now, though. How would you do that? Are we going to get a map from the Grogian people who don't like anybody? She ignored that question and went over to her captain's chair, sitting down and bringing up a screen in front of her. It was soon showing that she was calling Cordite, but was going to have to wait to connect to him. It questioned her if she wanted to leave a message or not instead of waiting. Tapping her finger against the arm of the chair, she decided that waiting things out might be better. A minute passed before the screen had some change to it and the tired face of Cordite appeared. What do you want, Ophelia? A simple request. My maps are out of date for a sector, and it's not publicly accessible to us. Can you get us new ones? That's what you think I do as a government official now? It's probably part of what you do. He made a face which she smiled at. It was good to see the struggle of someone else having to deal with problems that had been designed for her. What do you need, and why do you need it? The coordinates and area map around the Grogian Empire. Ours are mysteriously blank. They haven't made maps to that area public. What is there that you want? It isn't made available to pirates as far as I know, and I don't think the public has access to those maps. And what I'm after is, of course, what every pirate is after. That's all I'm willing to say. I'll see what I can do for you. They might not give me access, and they might not do anything for me. Do your job, and I'll worry about those consequences that are coming towards me. Her last comment made him pause, but the connection ended on the communicator, leaving Ophelia to sit back and wait. The emissaries and all those aboard his ship were not making Evok happy. They had little information to provide to him and kept trying to talk to him. It was why he'd settled into his quarters and was waiting to arrive at the galactic seat of government. No need to go out there and be bothered by fools. However, a knock on his door made him snarl as it opened automatically, and 2 guards in galactic police uniforms stepped in. Who told you that you could come in without permission? We are here to know why the president of the Grogian Empire is visiting the galactic government. It isn't hard to figure out why I'm here. It's to talk to the proper people, of course. Good to hear, sir. If you could provide us with transportation papers. Why do you need those? We had an attack recently on a government ship. Thus, we need to be vigilant of all things. Criminals attacking doesn't mean stopping diplomats from doing their job. Sorry, sir, but it does. We don't know who committed the attack yet, and until then, all ships are treated equally and investigated. It is probably some pirates. Go away. I'm an official government official. You don't stop those. Sir, are you resisting us? The impudence of these weirdos was antagonizing to Evok. He just wanted to do what he needed to do. Did they really expect him to travel around with papers on his person? Any papers would be safely put away in a safe which I don't have access to, and it is up to the captain. I think they're in his quarters. Go bother them about it. Sir, since you don't have papers with you, I regret to inform you that you are now under arrest. I'm what? The 2 security guards, though, had begun to approach, with one of them pulling out a set of handcuffs. They were quick, with one trying to grab him and the other trying to get the cuffs slapped on. Evok was not going to stand for this, though, and took several steps away, looking at them wildly. Stay away. I'm the president of a respectable planet. We won't let you terrible people off the hook. If you do anything to us, don't do anything to me. It didn't seem to matter, though, to them, and they didn't listen to him. A small chase ensued around the large living room space, which only came to an end since Evok rarely ran, and he wound up tripping over the couch that had some weird legs that stuck out a bit. It was ornamental, and he'd been meaning to request its removal or change, but now, here lying on the soft rug with his hands being pulled behind his back, it was a little late to be thinking of those things. Everyone will hear about the crimes against me. That's fine and dandy. We will even take you right out by the press if you want, but you will still be under arrest for many things. Don't worry, the galaxy far and wide will know what's going on. Just you wait and see, Mr. Evok. They began pulling him up and then towards the door, after making sure that he was slightly presentable. Zol had been moved to a solitary cell, but she didn't mind all that much, except he'd been left alone. 2 times they'd forgotten to even give him any food. Not the greatest of times, and when he did get to see someone, they always looked new. He grumbled to himself that changes might have occurred aboard this space station, and that his plans of inciting the warden were shot to all hell. The bars to the cell were suddenly banged hard, and Zol, who'd been staring at them, realized he'd been doing so and snapped to. A look at the guard, a new, unfamiliar one, did not fill him with confidence. You want something. Warden wants to see you. Warden wants to meet ya. How do they? Is this the same one from before, or some other alien-like creature who is here to bother me? What do you think? I don't know, that's why I'm asking, you fool. He paused for a moment, and an idea of a question coming to him that might give him hints as to what was going on. I never caught the warden's name, by the way. Do you know what it was? The door cell was roughly opened with a bang as Zol got up from the floor he'd been sitting on. He waited for a moment to see if the guard would appear in the doorway or speak in answer to that question, and when they did finally appear in the doorway, he launched himself forward. The maneuver did not work as the guard simply stepped out of the way, letting him run into the wall on the other side of the hall. His head met the hard substance of the wall and bounced off as he hit the ground, hands going to his skull to shake the sudden pain and anger that was now infesting that spot. You are a fool and waste of time. I really should just execute you. However, standards have to be met, and you must first have meetings with people. Get up and get ready to move. You couldn't provide some sort of warning? I haven't even had a trial yet. No need for one when you were caught in the act. It would be a waste of breath and time to do so. As for warnings, maybe you'll think ahead instead of attacking and acting before you can think next time. If there is a next time, mister. After shaking off the effects, Zol would slowly rise to his feet, trying to look complacent, only to find his body going numb a second later and falling back down as a buzz went off. Try anything, and you'll find yourself a sloppy mess of whatever on this floor. The ship's guards and warden will not let you look at us in a way that makes us think you're a threat. There was no offer to help to get up, and it took Zol a few moments to recover. Once up, though, he tried to look as blank as possible, while also looking about for what had done that to him. He couldn't spot anything, and was trying to be careful so he would not be noticed as he merely began his march down the hallway. A few minutes of trudging brought Zol to the door which opened for him, and at first he peered in, trying to get a feel for the place before crossing over the threshold of this new room that he was brought to. It looked like a standard visitors' and prisoners' room with a glass wall between the two. On the other side stood a slimy-looking creature, and they were the only other alien in here at the moment. He took a few steps in and noted that the guards didn't follow him. There was also a heavy layer of slime, but from the creature that was going back and forth that was left on the floor with its tracks. He'd been taught to keep everything in front of him and his eyes on all things, in case they ever meant something. He'd been taught this by his mentor, and it was a lesson he'd never been able to forget, and it was one that never really was useful. He hated his mentor. You asked for me, I assume, warden person? The slime turned to look at him and grew up so that it was his size. The green neon glow that it gave off seemed to shift and lessen a bit. Yes, I did. I need to know if you understand what's going on here. This was not an expected question, and Zol wondered for a brief moment what was going on here. This was a simple sentencing, wasn't it? The creature made it sound like there were options on the table, but what they were and what they weren't, he could not see at the moment. No, I'm afraid I have no idea other than death awaits me, apparently. It's true you will be sentenced to death. That is a foregone conclusion since you did attack our troops. What the President is curious about is if this treasure you claim to know about. This news made Zol's head swim, since he had expected someone to be interested in it, though his thoughts had been for the warden and not this new one or the President, who hadn't bothered to introduce themselves. You expect me to tell you all I know when you're sentencing me to die, and all without introducing yourself? I doubt that me introducing myself would make you spill any secrets, but my title is Warden Coxey at the Coxey Part, And we aren't expecting you to hand over information for free. I'll get to live if I hand over what I know. Yes, of course, after you've died in the public eye. Appear to die, you mean. I would rather not die at all. The mouth of this alien, which sort of floated there, curled into what might be described by some as a smile. You will need to die for this to be all believable. This, of course, is all relying on you telling the president what they want to know. And what does he think I know, Mr. Warden? Treasure hidden away, not near the government, but a ways away. We think this might be a blind lie you've created to obscure things, but treasure has always been rumored to be around elsewhere in the galaxy. Zol grinned and shook his head. This was quite a quandary, and he didn't think giving away what he knew was a good idea. He'd thrown out his old fairy tale and caught some fools with it, which was good, but now also bad, since expectations had been set and he didn't know if he could meet them. No execution, or at least the faked one if you want me to talk. Otherwise, what I know goes with me to the grave. Can I go now? He decided not to wait for an answer as he turned and headed for the door. His mind, though, was tossing and turning, trying to come up with some idea of where this treasure he kind of had an idea of might be hidden away. Morning had rolled around, and because a call on the computers was not due, Cordite now stood in the lobby of the Grogian embassy. The nice carpets of this embassy were the only nice things so far in this monolithic structure that was empty of much aside from doors set into a wall. In front of him were two guards, neither of whom looked like they wanted to talk. He was also alone, unable to bring someone to confer with him, thanks to this embassy's regulations. Do I have long to wait for the ambassador to see them? Can anyone give me a small piece of information? I don't see a reason for creating all of this drama. Silence. You'll have your moment when it comes. Until then, pirate, shut up and don't talk. He was about to respond and was saved from the moment the door opened from the back wall, and out strolled Tulis, who stopped and stared back at him. It took her for a moment, but she slowly came over, curiosity on her face as she came to a stop next to the guards. What are you doing here? A request for maps by a pirate group. Are we expected to hand them over to pirates? Cordite gave a simple shrug to her that he didn't know. According to regulations, which I have to familiarize myself with, I guess so, according to the galactic government, it isn't explicitly stated that you have to. I do have to make a request to your group here, though, since you would be the ones with permission and access to maps of your area. I don't think you will get them if that is all you have to offer. I may be new to this, but I think that's how things go. Trade for trade? A middleman with no say in the matter now has to trade for things. Great. Another door opened, and this time an official-looking person stepped out. The suit and tie were a dead giveaway, when everyone else had a bit more relaxed attire, and they sort of all stiffened up when that one came out. This figure strolled right over to them and offered a bow. Hello, I am Ambassador Cricket Johns for the Grogian aliens. You are the new appointee, pirate person, Tulis and Nero, yes? Cordite Mercury, and yes, that is me. I've come to seek maps for a group of pirates. Of the Empire, no doubt. You know we don't release them without any good reason. Do you happen to have that? With a frown, Cordite knew he couldn't say much about his reasonings that Ophelia had. It was likely to do with ship goods or treasure, and neither would be welcomed answers or accepted ones. Duelist was saying something about a trade. If you're up for that, then we can make arrangements that way. Always of an interest. What have you got that would be good for us? How much do you know about the bounties on Nero and Tulis's head? The ambassador glanced over to Tulis, who withdrew a bit away from them, then back to Cordite. I have access, and you can get access to the system to tell me who put a bounty on them, if that's an interest to you, in trade for the maps, and, good cooperation. You don't think we can get access to this information ourselves? Legally? No, probably not. Not without raising a fuss, anyway. I can do that, though. And maybe legally, and get all you need to know about them. Oh, yes, well, that sounds slightly interesting. Give us an hour to talk it over. We will let you know. The ambassador turned and grabbed a hold of Tulis, dragging her towards the room that he'd just come from. End of Part 7 of Pirates, Politics, and Potentially Treasure, Book 1. Thank you for listening.